Welcome to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books with Zibby. I'm the host, Zibby Owens. I am an author. My latest is Blank, pub date March 1st, a novel. I'm also a podcaster, obviously, a publisher, a bookstore owner, and so much more. If you love books, you're in the right place. In fact, we call it the Zibbyverse, or really, the LA Times called it the Zibbyverse, and we're going with it. Go to zibbyowens.com to learn more and follow me on Instagram at zibbyowens. I had the immense honor of interviewing the legendary Joan Collins. Behind the shoulder pads, Tales I Tell My Friends. We did this as a live in-person event in front of the whole Zibby's Bookshop audience on the anniversary of Zibby's Bookshop, which has now been around for a year, which is crazy. Anyway, here is Joan Collins' bio, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. I had the best time interviewing her. Joan Collins is a legend of the screen and stage. Dame Joan Collins is perhaps best known for playing Alexis Carrington in the globally popular television series Dynasty. She has appeared in over 70 films, hundreds of TV shows, and over a dozen plays. She is also a best-selling author of 17 books. Actually, I think it was 19 by the time I saw her, and many articles and editorials, including those for The Spectator magazine. She was made a dame in 2015 by Queen Elizabeth II for her charity work and services to drama. She and her husband, Percy Gibson, divide their time between London, Los Angeles, and the south of France, which she talks all about in her book. So honored today to have Joan Collins here. This is so exciting. Thank you for coming to Zibby's Bookshop and coming on the podcast to discuss Behind the Shoulder Pads, Tales I Tell My Friends, and now all of us as well.
Yes, well, you can all be my friends. So now that you've heard the stories. Yeah, well, it is kind of a memoir. Not really, because I've written 2 or 3 other memoirs, so I figured I don't want to talk about my childhood and all of those boring things, and I do. So I scanned past that, although I do talk about when I first met my sister, Jackie, and how horrified I was because I'd been taken away by my aunt for 4 days, and I didn't know why, and when I came back, my father proudly took me into the room where my mother was sitting holding this squalling thing, and I didn't know anything about that. And I said, "What's that?" And she said, "This is your new sister, Jacqueline Jill." And I said, "What a stupid name." And I said, "Where did she come from?" And Mommy said, "God brought her." Anyway, that was a long time ago when children of 4 didn't know anything, but that's the sort of story that I tell about. And there's quite a few of those.
And you talk about in your childhood dodging the air raids and World War II and having to escape. That was...
Well, one of the things that was so great about my mother, which I only appreciated later, was the fact that she kept us totally protected. We couldn't read newspapers, and there weren't my parents read newspapers, but they were always hidden. There was the radio, but that was never on. We had plenty of toys, and we drew and we painted and we read, but we didn't know how terrible this war was. When you compare it today to children in the Ukraine, for example, or wherever there is conflict, they know from the age of 18 months, too. We knew nothing. We didn't know that Hitler, the Nazis, were at our shoreline, ready to invade us. My mother kept it all from us. And this is only something that I appreciated many years later, because, I was so busy, being an actress, being a mother, being a wife, getting married, all the things. And it was only when I started to write and ruminate, I thought, I really had good parents. And not only did she do that, but I was not allowed to see any disturbing films. Nothing with guns, nothing with violence, nothing with blood. I remember begging to be allowed to go and see this film with Tyrone Power and Rita Hayworth, I can't remember what it was called. And they said, no, it's too violent. It will affect your brain. And frankly, I think they were right.
Well, then you quickly got into the most illustrious academy and got this massive contract in movies and films and Hollywood glamour, even though you started so young. What was that like for you? Because in the book, you introduce us to basically every big-name Hollywood person ever you've had an experience with.
Well, it's true because, in that particular time, this is before paparazzi. It's before every time you went out, you would find, the buses would come, and people were walking, all of the actors were there. They were out like ordinary people. I mean, I remember the first time I went out, I saw Fred Astaire walking down the street. Fred Astaire, I mean, dressed beautifully, and it was like just quite amazing that you would see them. Then I'd go out to a dinner, and there would be Lana Turner sitting, or you'd go and you'd see Hedy Lamarr. They were just around. They were around like you guys are around. Oh, you're wearing a mask.
Yeah, just the same.
Okay.
It's Judy Garland running in the door holding Liza.
Oh, yeah, that was quite funny. Judy Garland comes running into this party at Gene Kelly's house. And I'm not dropping names. I was there, and I was there many, many, many times. And she had this squalling brat in her arm. She said, "I'm so sorry I'm late." Liza wouldn't stop crying.
And then you also took a ride with James Dean, and you said, "I was in Jimmy's car, and I was so scared."
I was, because he went from 0 to 60 in about 10 minutes. And from downtown Hollywood to Beverly Hills to see a very famous actor who was like God. All of the kids we used to sit at his feet, and he used to talk about his life and tell anecdotes. But Jimmy got there so fast. And the guy I was with, that I was dating, said, he's going to kill himself in that car once. That's ridiculous that you went in that car. And I said, well, it's a beautiful car. Who knows? When you're 20, 21, you're not frightened of anything. You really aren't. And, of course, 6 months later, I'm in New York and I get a knock on the door, and it's that friend, Arthur, and he came in and he said, Jimmy died in that car 6 months later. Yeah. No, there were some very fascinating people. They were all very fascinating, and I was lucky enough to work with some of the fascinating people. And, to do my first Hollywood film, I was working with Bette Davis. To do my second Hollywood film, it was Ray Milland and Farley Granger. And then the next one, it was June Allison and Ann Miller and, a whole bunch of very famous actresses. That's who I was working with.
Amazing. When you talked about fast-forwarding quite a bit when you were on Dynasty, and you did a big collaboration, you talked a lot in the book about the costume and how you really made that character into who Alexis was so much you and your input into how she should dress and look and be. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I had watched a lot of 1980s, late 1970s TV shows, and I wasn't terribly impressed by the way the actresses are dressed. Most of them wore like slacks and a silk blouse, and sort of the way I'm dressed now. And very simply. And when Nolan Miller, the great designer, talked to me about, how did I see my character, I said, well, I see her as being very haute couture. This woman has been exiled from America. She has been exiled, and she has become a jet setter. She's going around the world. She's going to all the fashion shows. She, meets princes and kings and counts, and she's very up there with the society and aristocracy. And she would dress in a very, very stylish manner. Do you think we can do that? And he said, well, I don't think we have haute couture in Hollywood. I said, well, why can't we make it? Because he had this whole group of wonderful seamstresses and cutters and brilliant women, mostly sort of Italian and Romanian and French, who had been there since the 40s or 50s. And they would make things. And we then had a collaboration, Nolan and me, and he would talk to me and say, so you have a scene. How do you see yourself in the scene where you go to Moldavia and it's cold there? And I said, well, I saw a picture of Princess Diana in Russia, and she's wearing an Astrakhan hat, an Astrakhan muff, and a grey coat, waisted, and boots, and I think that would be good. So I tore it out of Hello magazine, and they copy it in a week. And the same thing with another scene where I'm being chased around and this guy's trying to murder me. And he said, how do you see this? And I said, well, I've got to be in something that I can really move in, and I don't really want to wear trousers because Alexis, I didn't see her in trousers very often. She did wear them, but she was more of a skirt girl. And I said, well, how about a crossover dress in like very soft suede? How about dark green with matching boots? Can you do matching boots, Nolan? And he said, yeah, we can do matching boots. And they did within 2 days. It was quite magical. I don't know how they did it then. But that was years ago when, they really cared about how you looked on the screen.
Although you do mention that there's one outfit they had to make 4 of when you went into the water over and over.
Yeah. Yes, they had to make more, and they used the most horrible, cheap material that every time I went in, it shrunk. So by the time we did the 4th take, and I was in the water, it was like the size that would fit an 8-year-old.
Oh my gosh. So part of what makes your book just so hard to put down and delicious is it's not just about the famous names and the situations that you were in, but you interweave all of this personal stuff about your family and your relationships and your emotions and speeches that are really important to you over time, falling in love with Percy, all of that. And I wanted to read just one, and your sense of humor sort of permeates everything. There's one passage I wanted to read when you're giving suggestions for what to do when you're sort of locked in COVID, and one of them is exercise. And you say, another great cure for all ills, exercise is key, but can also be a source of resentment. My husband has been on a health kick for the last few years, so he will wake up early for a run or a workout and come home flushed with virtuous accomplishment, while I lie in bed reading all the papers, sipping several cups of coffee. Percy's smug face seems to say, so when are you getting moving? I contemplate throwing the contents of my cup at him, but then I think better of it. What a waste of coffee. The whole book is like that. It's your quips, your fun, great lines.
Well, I mean, to me, humor is what gets you through life. It's very important. Unfortunately, it seems that, it's sort of sadly lacking today in very many ways. I mean, I don't know why, but you don't see as much as you used to. But then again, people have to be careful. I don't think I've offended anybody by what I said. Maybe Percy. Is he here? It's our anniversary today, by the way.
Yay.
22 years. I can't believe that. It feels like 8. But did you like the fact that Percy wrote some
Yes, I did.
The chapters in the book? Well, not chapters, half chapters in the book. Like, I would describe how I felt about going to the first day of doing this play, Love Letters, which I was doing in San Francisco, and that's when I first met Percy. And he was the company manager, and he described in the book how he felt when he met me, and it's quite different how we say. And then when we did the audio, which I had to say I haven't heard yet, but I remember doing it, Percy read his part. Do we have the audio is something that you get online, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I could get it for you if you want to hear it.
No,
After this, I could get it on my phone.
Don't worry.
No, I did like, because you got to hear his voice and his side of the story as well. And I feel like I was joking before about your hypothetical conversation in the car, and I was like, well, I feel like I know what she and Percy are like in private because it's in the book, your whole relationship.
Yeah, I guess so. We had a lovely morning, drinking coffee and opening presents. I gave him an Oscar with an inscription on it. I'm not going to tell you what it said. And I also gave him a photograph of me with Superman, and I put Percy's head on it. Yeah.
So what readers or listeners might not know is the age difference between the two of you, and how
Which we don't talk about.
Which we don't talk about, okay. But at first this was you both had to, well, not him, he was all in from the beginning, really, but you had to come to terms with that and make a decision, and you took yourself to a spa for a weekend and said, okay, am I going to do this or not do this?
Well, one of the reasons that I went to the spa is not necessarily for that, is that I'd been in a relationship for over 10 years that really wasn't going anywhere, and I had to make this decision. Did I want to give up this relationship, which was not at all fulfilling? It was just more like a sort of funny friend who was there not all the time, but just sometimes. Anyway, that's what I did. I went, yeah. And then I made up my mind and then to be with him. And then on 9/11, when 9/11 occurred, which was, what was the year? What year was that? It was 9/11.
2001.
2001, yeah. September 2001 is when we decided to get married, when we saw what had happened and how everybody had lost so much and the carnage. And we said, let's get married as soon as possible. He did. And I agreed, even though I'd done it a few times before. But now we've been married for 22 years, which is more than all 4 of my marriages put together. Because 2 of them lasted for 1 year, and 2 of them, the 2 that I had, the husbands I had children with, lasted for 7 or 8 years, yeah.
And you write really beautifully about your children also, although you did have a horrible scare when your daughter Katie was in an accident. You write about that, and later when she fainted. I mean, you've gone through a lot of really tragic, difficult stuff, and yet you write about it concisely and with humor and in your upbeat style.
Well, I think probably it has something to do with the fact that, our family motto was just get on with it. Don't moan, don't complain, do it. Nobody's ever going to do anything for you except yourself. And came into the business, a business that my father did not want me to go into. Acting, he said, you'll be finished by the time you're 23. You've got to face all these predatory men, which is really something that you didn't even think about. Predatory men, what are they? Well, there are a lot of them. And so my father was quite a good influence on me in that. So I had the perfect combination of a very strict father, but loving, and a very soft, vulnerable, sweet, and loving, definitive 1950s mother. All she cared about was her children and her husband and keeping the family together. And I'm very grateful for that combination. I think it's really important, if it's possible to have a great family life. I finally found it with Percy, but I tried 4 times and it didn't work. But I finally found Mr. Right.
You also dodged many sort of natural disasters over the course of your life. You have multiple fires that you escaped.
Yes.
And I mean, it's like a movie. Your life is like a movie.
I know it is, actually. How about, this on the Chinese junk, when we were having a little travel, we were in Hong Kong, and my girlfriend Judy and I were going on what we thought was a pleasure trip on a Chinese junk out just around Hong Kong to see the sights, and a tornado came up, and the Chinese junk, they couldn't control it, and it was being pulled out to the most dangerous sea in the world, the South China Seas, and we almost died.
Of course, you told your friend not to wear her wig upstairs. It went flying away, and you're like, I told you so.
Yeah, it's true.
There's a big part of the book that also takes place in the south of France, and the big benefit parties and Leonardo DiCaprio's party and all the famous restaurants like 55 and all the places where you were out and about and relishing and loving the life there. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, you have to read the book because that's just how we tried to live our life in the summer. I always wanted to have a place to take my children. At one point, I had 6 children, all under the age of 12. I had 3 stepchildren, and I had Tara and Sasha, who were like 9 and 7, and then I had a baby, Katie. And these other children who were 9, 10, and 12. And I thought, what? We're spending a fortune taking them to hotels. So I said, we have to find a place, I had to buy a house. So I bought a house in Spain, and we'd take all the children there, because there's loads of school holidays. If anybody's got any children, they know how many holidays there are. And half-term, in England, half-term holidays, which last for 10 days. So we would take the children there. And then, unfortunately, I had to sell that house because somebody did some horrible things with my money. But that's, I can't put all this concisely, just talking to you, Zibby, although I like talking to you.
Thank you.
It's, you really have to read it. Because I have been, I'm just thinking about an actress today that I've been reading about that was complaining a lot about her lot. Oh, it's so hard to be me. Every time I go out to dinner, I have to pay for everybody $3,000. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but it's in the papers. You can look it up. But I just I have a thing, you eat life or life eats you, and, live every day as though it's your last, because one day it will be. All kinds of mottos.
Yes. You also, in one scene in the book, someone says to you, oh, you used to be the actress Joan Collins, and you said, oh, I still am.
Well, I didn't quite say it like that, Zibby.
Okay. That's how I read it. That's how I read it.
I would say, and yes, I still am.
Oh, that's better.
Kind of more of a Betty
That's
Davis.
Better. That's much better, yes.
Yeah, oh no, I still get that. In fact, yesterday, I was at a shop in Beverly Hills, and this guy said, and it's an upmarket shop. He said, I know you. Who are you? And I said, well, why are you asking me who I am? You shouldn't ask me that. This is a posh shop. What are you doing? Anyway, he went, no, I know you're somebody. Are you one of those Collins sisters? And I thought, Collins sisters, I was, but my sister's been dead for 8 years. What a fool. I walked away. I said, you're very rude. Then I said to the owner of the shop, I said, you have to tell him he can't go up to a customer. Would you do that in your shop?
No.
Who are you? No, I know you. I know who you are. You look familiar.
I would never do that.
Well, I know you would. But you'd be amazed. You'd be amazed how much it happens. Anyway,
Do you think there's anything your sister would read in this book and say, oh, no, you really shouldn't have put that in?
Do you? Obviously you do.
I'm just wondering. There's a lot in the book. It's amazing. That's why it's so juicy.
Yeah, I don't think she probably liked when I said Jackal and Jill. Oh, what a stupid name. When you're 4, I don't think I don't know. I'd have to read it again and judge it. Because I haven't really read it since I wrote it. And then going back over and then having to do the audio, which was torture. We were stuck in a room with no air conditioning, no cell phone access, no water. Right at the bottom of the Albert Hall for some reason.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, you say also in the book how much you love Scrabble and all these other games, and for you it almost feels like life is a game. Like there has to be this joy and this pleasure and spirit. Do you feel like that?
Yes, I do. I try to live each day, in which I enjoy something, I learn something, and I achieve something. And I try to add that up at the end of the day. Enjoy is easy. Just watch, television. Or no, I do like to watch old movies on TV, and I think that's what I try to do, or achieve something. I'm writing now, not anything specific, but I try to write it, and I am writing something. I'm writing an article for a magazine.
And you've written 19 books.
I have.
That's crazy. So many books.
Why is it crazy?
It's just like, I don't know. It just feels like how many times.
My sister wrote. How many did Jackie write? Does anybody know here? Didn't she write something like 38 or 40? No? We'll look it up. Somebody Google. Oh, there she goes. Yeah.
I didn't mean to say great. It's a fabulous accomplishment.
Thank you. Well, I might write one more, because one of the things that people...
32.
32. Wow, well, that's an accomplishment. But of course she was... well, maybe one more. And I think I'll call it... I don't know how she does it. Because that's what all my friends keep saying. I don't know how you do it. You're being on this tour, and now I'm getting ready to do a movie in Prague, which I'm looking forward to. Yeah, I've never been to Prague, so that'll be an adventure.
What can you say about the movie?
Oh, it's like a murder mystery Agatha Christie type thing. Yeah, so I would be the Monsieur Poirot or Miss Marple, the one who solves it. It's rather good.
So what advice would you have to an aspiring author?
Aspiring author?
Yeah.
Oh, never stop writing. Start at the beginning. I mean, I started writing when I was 12. I edited the fourth form newspaper, and I wrote stories. And then I taught my sister to write, and because she's 4 years younger, so she started to write. She wrote much more than me because she wasn't an actress then. So when I started acting, I kind of stopped. But then I started keeping diaries. And you know, who was it that said, if you keep a diary, one day it'll keep you? So this has certainly been true, because I had to do a lot of research on this. I mean, some of the stories, I mean, the one where we're trapped on the beach in Greece with Christopher Biggins and my girlfriend with no water and no loo. I mean, I'd forgotten about that one. And then this terrible street that they called Joan Collins Boulevard. I'd gone to open a hotel which turned out to be a dump.
Yeah. I thought of something maybe Jackie wouldn't want you to put in.
What?
But about her scene with Marlon Brando.
She loves that story.
Okay, all right.
She adored that, and she would always wink and not tell us what happened, what the end game was. But I was sitting there with a group of people. I won't tell you who they were because you'll say I'm dropping names. But
we would never say that.
Okay, Paul Newman. Anyway, and Paul is saying, your sister, and he was sitting there with a beer. I said, your sister's going up the stairs with Marlon. And I said, I know, I see that. She's his favorite movie star. I mean, he's her favorite movie star. He said, I know, but, I mean, you know, she's 18 and he's, 30-something. And I said, well, what can I do? He said, do you think you should go up and stop her? I said, well, I know Mummy said I had to take care of her, but she would never forgive me if I went upstairs and stopped them going up there. So when they came down, I said, so what happened? And she just did that girly giggle, and she's never told anybody, not even her children.
Whoa.
So nobody knows. That's a good way to be.
That is a good way to be. Any secrets of being a working actor for your entire life?
Never give up, really. Any actors here? No?
Yes.
Yeah? Well,
Two.
never give up, except rejection constantly. Don't you? I did, yeah. And, I mean, I have that story about I was fired by Bluethorn.
Yes.
Yeah, and I just
I
saw...
love that show, too, by the way, The Offer.
Oh, it's
you talk
great.
about The Offer. Has anyone seen the show The Offer? It was so amazing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
yeah, that's one of my favorite shows. I've seen it twice. All about the making of Godfather, The Godfather. And Charles Bluethorn in this film keeps on saying, you're fired, you're fired. And when we're watching it, I say to Percy, he fired me from that movie I was going to do with Michael Caine called The Italian Job. And I was hired for it. And then my agent told me, he fired you. And I said, why? She said, I don't know, but you got paid. I said, it's okay. But it would have been nice to have done a film with Michael, because he's a friend of mine.
is there anybody you want to do a film with now that you haven't?
Well, I would love to have worked with De Niro or Gene Hackman. To me, they are just giants. But, it's never too late, is it?
Never
or is
too late.
it? I don't know.
Get
I'm
on-
happy to work, whoever it is.
How are you going to celebrate your wedding anniversary?
We're going out to lunch with a group of friends after I do my signing, if anybody's going to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for
Well, thank
coming
you,
on the
Zibby.
show. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thanks for listening to this episode of Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens and at Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Also sign up for my newsletter at zibbyowens.com and sign up for my virtual book club and meet lots of authors on Zoom every other week. Thanks so much to Steve and Ryan at Texture Sound for the sound editing. And thank you to Morning Moon Productions for providing this fantastic intro and outro music.